Hey guys, welcome back, I guess. This is just a video I'm doing as a response to MilkyJuice, that delicious, well, not delicious, it sounds utterly disgusting if it was an actual drink, but that great YouTube channel that I've promoted a few times with some really cool people, the Milky Crew. The rivals to the Sugar Hill Gang, they did a top 5 comic stories between the 4 of them. The rules were very simple. They could be any length, and they had to be just one main character per story. Like you could only have one Superman story, one Batman story, blah blah blah. I follow that rule more than finely. So we're doing that, but before we go, I need to do this in the same style and the same flair as MilkyJuice. So that means we're going to do this video from within a cave. Ooh. Yeah, that was a stupid idea. Oh, okay. Let me get out of the cave real quick. Now that goofiness is out of the way, let's go look at the stories I've picked. So, number 5 is easily Green Lantern Sinestro Corps War. This thing has a very special place in my heart because this was I got into the comics, was getting into the Green Lantern, and I'd gotten a buddy of mine let me read the run. He had the whole run of the core story, and I was just swept away by it. I think it's still one of the better kind of like big event kind of stories. It keeps going and going. Though it's been a little while since I've read it, there's still some beats that stick with me. More importantly, the scene with Hal in Coast City with his family, where none of them want to run away. They all want to stand here and, be brave and face it. And they all put green lights in the house, and the whole city lights up green. And that's a beautiful moment, and I always love, and kind of brought a tear to my eye really once I thought about it more and more. I just love so much of it, and all these different things. Like they brought in, for example, they brought in Superboy Prime, and I didn't hate him in this. Like many people, I'm on the bandwagon of Superboy Prime is a giant jackass who it's almost impossible to really do anything with him. But I think he does kind of work in the context. When they brought in the Anti-Monitor, I remember thinking that was awesome. All this stuff, I still think it holds up very well. I think once you read Rebirth, at least if you read Rebirth, it's a story that I think still holds up very well as a story. Reading the Lantern stuff that came before it might be useful. Johns' run and Dave Gibbons' run on Core too. But I think it's a good story that holds up really well on its own. So yeah, that's definitely my number 5. Number 4 is Richard Stark's Parker, the Hunter. The first in the graphic novel series, done completely by Darwin Cook, adapting Richard Stark's Parker novels. I know he has another name, but Donald Westlake. But Richard Stark's is the pseudonym he used for it. I've only read this volume, but my God, this was. I'd waited years to read this, and then I happened to come across it at a used bookstore, and I read it and I couldn't put it down. My God, there's not a single problem with this story. It has great characters. The main character, Parker himself, is so fascinating.
you root for him the entire time, but in all honesty, he's not a good guy. He violently kills people only because they double-crossed him. He has a very complex kind of motivation. There's a girl who, cheated on him, betrayed him, had him left for dead, goes back to her, and kind of pities her for being used as a pawn, in all honesty. And the thing is, I need to get off my ass and do a video about this, but I want to read at least the second one before I go on. I want to get them all. There's 3 out currently, counting this one. A 4th one on its way. I hear they're doing more, actually. I don't know if that's... I haven't found like an official thing that says that's true or not. I just heard it off iFanboy. But, my God, this thing is great. The art's done insanely well. There's all these different storytellings. There's parts where it goes straight into prose, which, you know me, I'm not a big... I kind of have a physical issue with reading text, but the way Cook does it, it works. And if anything, this book's beautiful to look at. I mean, I love Darwin Cook's art in general, but he goes far beyond what you might see him if you ever see what he did for Catwoman or New Frontier, or hell, anything he did for Bruce Timm Animation. He did some design work there, so it doesn't just look like like that. This thing's I gotta stop. And mind you, it was really hard to really rank a lot of these. But yeah, Parker's got to be my number 4, and again, I'm arguing for the positions of all of these stories, but yeah, if you're at all curious, check out Parker. There's the trade paperback version is coming up pretty soon. It's a beautiful story and captures that period insanely well. The 60s, it's beautiful in every way. Number 3, and trust me, like I said before, all these were really tough to spot, but number 3 has to be Marvels by Kurt Busiek and Alex Ross. This is just purely amazing. This captures a magic that is impossible to really get. It's an idea that on its surface I can see someone screwing up. The idea of, what if this man, a guy who, focused on just one guy who was around all these different times where all these significant, comic book events happened in the real world and all that. And I'm kind of curious of what that would be like. And the way they capture it is just still outright amazing. The idea that all these different things, all these significant events, like the first appearance of Fantastic Four, Spider-Man showing up, are treated like huge historical events, and we get to see one guy witness all of it, and it captures beautifully what it would be like to see this stuff happen if it were real through an average guy. And hell, there's even a story circling around his life using all the stuff around him, like mutants and the Phil Sheldon's the character's name, his issues with Spider-Man, so interesting. And Busiek writes all these characters beautifully. Sheldon's amazing, and Alex Ross, there's a reason you see this guy constantly around doing covers and on occasion interiors. But I can look at this book all day. This is again one of those books where if you just want to kind of pass a little time and just stare at some beautiful artwork, this is still some of his best. It every page is just like a look at this kind of page. Especially the, image of Giant Man. One of the few times I ever was like, oh yeah, Hank Pym. Yeah, I'm so happy to see that image of you, Hank Pym. Isn't irony hilarious? And I just love this. And the sequel that Busiek eventually did over a decade later is pretty good too. It gets a lot of the stuff right, but the original will always be amazing to me because it not only did Sheldon kind of feel like, well, the average person, but you just enjoyed his, kind of felt bad for him in life, and really got to care about this character. None of the Marvel characters are the main characters. He's the main character, and everyone. It's so weird to see that again. See the fact that we're focusing on some guy in this who happens to live in this universe, not the heroes themselves. That's what interesting. But then they don't disappoint and make him a character that's worth following for 4 issues. It's great. I'm gushing as always. So let's move on to number 2. Number 2 was tough. Again, but it had to be All-Star Superman. Everything you hear, if you know this book, you know what I'm going to say. If you've heard of this book and, have seen other people praise it, I'm going to praise it for the same thing. Beautiful art. Wonderful, wonderful writings, and a lot of good story, a beautiful story all around, but a lot of great one-and-dones. Whenever I pull out a trade, I read the whole trade. Sometimes with this series, I'll just go and say, you know what, I want to read the Bizarro two-parter. That was a good story on its own. I really like the issue where Superman, saves the girl from committing suicide. There's so many good single issues, and they all matter by the end of the story, by the end of the whole series. But just as their own, they're perfect. But once you see how they all interconnect towards the end, it's a masterpiece. And I love every interpretation of all these characters. I love that Superman. And this isn't completely new, but the fact that he doesn't seem like a perfect person. Like, he slouches and he kind of acts like he acts more like a normal person than I think anyone's ever made him as Superman, not just as Clark Kent. And the fact that, what his final fate is at the end of the book, sad. And there's only one thing I complain about. They bait me in for a sequel, and I don't think I'll ever get it, or anything in this continuity. And I don't think I need anything else in this continuity, unless it was Morrison and Quietly. I'm happy with the way the story began and started. It's a wonderful run. If you haven't read it yet, why haven't you? Beautiful work. I just don't want to keep going on. Now, this is it. Number 1. Well, what can be my number 1? Many of you already know it. You know me. My number 1 comic story of all time, has to be Ultimatum by Jeff Loeb and David Finch. It is a beautifully drawn story. You care about everyone's death in the end, and okay, I'm not going with the I can't buy that bullshit. No, it's DC New Frontier. I did a video a long time ago praising this book. It's still, picking up the others was hard. Picking out, 5 through 4 was really hard. 1 I knew. 1 I had instantly kind of plucked out and said number 1, and DC New Frontier's it. Never has a book just out and out amazed me the way this has. I mean, I saw the movie adaptation first, and once I finally got my hands on, its 2-volume series, well, 2 trades, I read all this and it was just like, my God, all this is fantastic. It and Darwin Cook talked about how when creating this, he the kind of motivation was he looked at the kind of publishing history of the characters at the time, with the Golden Age falling out and the Silver Age coming in, and compared it to how, you know, all the different kind of world conflicts we were dealing with, you know, war, all that, World War II, Cold War, all that. And he saw some, and from that he saw some very interesting intersections, and used that as a basis for a story and try to tell it, and he tells it amazingly. Everyone's used fairly well here. Everyone's used amazingly here. Even in the smallest bit, there's some kind of importance. Up front, I love it because it's very much a Hal Jordan story. You see him as a, you know, veteran, psychologically damaged by a very major scene that made the movie. It's still one of the most chilling scenes in the movie, too, but it's equally as chilling in this book. And basically, a lot of this is his story of him, you know, wanting to fly. This stays, and this is something that's always part of any version of Hal, really. But loving just being able to fly, whether it be a jet or having a ring. Darwin Cook really plays that, and gives him opportunities where, you know, there's the scene where with the rocket, but the opportunity is taken away from him in the book. He's not on the rocket. They change that around, and all this stuff, getting the ring and kind of realizing his full potential, and overcoming great fear of failure, fear of all this to become it. John Jones equally is amazing, a character where he, as his origin, gets zapped to Earth through some science stuff. There's some really nice bits of him trying to adapt to our society, watching TV as an education device, going to a movie and laughing at the cheesy alien in it. That's not in the movie. Doing all these things, basically forming a new life after he lost his old one. And the relationship with King Faraday, and King Faraday is a great character. I like everyone. I love everyone. The use of Superman, they very much inspired by the kind of Dark Knight Returns view of the character, where he's a government tool. He's a tool of the government. Wonder Woman is great. Batman, for as little as he actually is in the book, one thing I laugh about, and part of it is my cynicism towards all the people who think we need Batman in every panel of everything, is the fact that people are like, oh, Batman only has like 6 minutes in the movie. And actually, he has more scenes in the movie than the book. He used very sparsely, but when they use him perfectly. Cook knows all these characters and knows how to make them work. And I love the explanation from how this story explains why he changed his look to look a little less menacing, and why he picked a kid's sidekick up and had this relationship with Superman, and again, make it all work and make it work great. And I love that. Oh man, there's so many things. One thing that's not in the movie because they had to cut it for time, it gets a mention though, is there's this kind of subplot with this character named John Henry, who's basically based off Steel, who's this character who is an African American, was going to be killed by a KKK clan. That is completely repetitive, KKK clan. Anyway, we're learning things today. And they fail, but he goes on their vengeance, and the whole idea that he wears the noose that they tried to kill him with as a badge of honor, and tries his best to fight back, is amazing. And the final scene we see with him's is heartbreaking. I can't spoil it for you, but the way they play his final scene in the book is kind of, it paints an ugly portrait, but it's beautiful at the same time. It got down what that scene had. That scene knew what Cook knew what that scene needed to be, and didn't pull any punches. That's another thing. This doesn't feel like some sort of watered down thing. This feels very brutally honest about the history, about how characters reacted. Oh, I gotta mention, I love the Flash in this. And again, this is from Cook. Cook mentioned how this character has a great inferiority complex. I mean, compare himself to Superman, who can tote the moon on a chain, and this guy's like stopping the trickster from robbing a bank. Like, he in the story doesn't think he can hold up to what all the established heroes can do, and seeing people like, you know, Hal and John out for the first time, who have superpowers that kind of put them on the same field as Superman at that point. I'm afraid of becoming a broken record and praising all this stuff, but for rightful reasons. But this is still, and probably always will be, my favorite comic story. One of my favorite things just to read. It's been forever since I read it. I actually wasn't planning on it, but I decided to start reading it, and I bolted through it this week to get through it. So it still holds up. It's beautiful art, amazing. Yeah, Darwin Cook has it has 2 spots in my top 5. That's how much I love the guy. So that's my top 5 comic stories, at least at the moment, of all time. If you're interested in doing a video like this, please make it a video response to the MilkyJuice video, which this video is a response to. And again, subscribe to MilkyJuice. Love that channel. Love those guys. They're a lot of fun. They do entertaining as hell videos, and see what they picked for their, what the 4 of them picked for their 5 stories. There's a huge variety among their list, and it's great. And I'm going to end the video here because this video has been nothing but me praising things. Bye.